Today, let's talk about how your inner critic is affecting your pain and how self compassion is the answer to reducing the power of your inner critic's voice. And I'm also going to go through a self compassion meditation. So let's get into it. A lot of people have an inner critic. This is the voice in your head that's always putting you down, criticizing you, telling you you're not good enough. And I find a lot of times our inner critic happens from earlier in life when someone criticized us. So the voice in our head could be someone in the past that's criticized you, such as a caregiver or a bully. And I'm no exception to this. I have a strong inner critic, and I've had to work really hard to reduce the power of its voice. And I never want to come off on this channel like I have it all together, because a lot of times I don't. I can be a mess, just like every human being can at some point. But I need to be careful on not listening to my inner critic because it will start to direct my actions in life. And then all of a sudden, I'm not living life through a lens of safety and love. I'm living it through a lens of fear and danger. And so when we talk about, the inner critic, when we relate this to neuroplastic pain, there's a huge correlation, right? People with neuroplastic pain or mind body concerns tend to be perfectionistic, people pleasing, conscientious. And what happens is we have a lot of self criticism going on. And so the more you criticize yourself, and this might feel normal to us, this narrative, this critical narrative we have in our head, but it's causing the level of danger to increase in the brain and nervous system, which then can spill over into chronic pain symptoms or physical symptoms occurring because we're just always putting ourselves down or putting excessive pressure on ourselves. Now, there's kind of two steps that I incorporate to challenging the inner critic. First is challenging the critical thoughts you have. A lot of times when we have thoughts, we take them all as facts, but thoughts are not facts. And I'm here to tell you the critical voice in your head is not correct. It's just a narrative that's developed over the course of your lifespan, but it doesn't mean that it's actually correct or right. And so starting to view these critical thoughts is exactly that, just thoughts. They're just thoughts that are occurring. It's the story in our head, and they don't need to be more than that. We don't need to buy into them. And even for myself, when I do this, it sometimes prevents me from living through this lens of danger all the time because I realize they're just thoughts that are going on and they become really familiar to the brain. When we criticize ourselves constantly, it just becomes really familiar. And so anytime, even for myself, when I do something wrong, even if it's really small, I'll be really critical of myself and feel this backdraft of shame come on. But the thing is that we need to break that habit because it's a habit almost that's been created where we just are constantly critical of ourselves. And the first step is actually challenging that story and reminding ourselves that these are just thoughts, they're not facts. Now, the second step, which I think is huge in mind body healing, is self compassion. We need to develop a self compassion practice. Now, self compassion and self esteem are different things. I think I've talked about this on this channel before. Self esteem is basically as high as your last achievement, and it can be a really wicked roller coaster ride up and down. Where self compassion is this really stable trait that we can develop, where, even when we have our failings, self compassion is there. And when we're succeeding, we can also be compassionate towards ourselves. And I even think about motivating myself. I want to motivate myself from a place of compassion. I want to care for myself from a place of compassion. And I want to protect myself from a place of compassion. And to do this, we need consistent practice. Now, for myself, just, a piece on me, even over the last month and a half here, I started being really consistent with my self-compassion practice. And what this looks like is every morning and every night, right after my kids go to bed, I do some self compassion meditation I do different self-compassion meditations consistently. This could just be breathing and soothing touch. This could be some inner child work. This could, be self-kindness phrases, whether it's may I be kind to myself or may I accept myself just as I am, and saying these as you breathe. But incorporating this consistently, what I've noticed is this. The first day, I didn't notice any difference. I didn't feel any different. It helped me with maybe the suffering throughout my day. But as I consistently did it, and it's been about a month and a half, it's changed the way I relate to myself. And that's the beauty of self-compassion, is that, a moment will reduce the suffering that we feel, but a string of these moments will start to change the way we relate to ourselves. And even for myself, I've made mistakes over the last month and a half. I've noticed that there's significantly less shame or guilt that I feel when I make these mistakes because it's becoming more second nature that I'm compassionate towards myself. So I thought what we'd do is just go through a self-compassion meditation. This is a pretty standard one, but I think it really emulates what we're kind of going for in our self-compassion practice. So I'll give you an example of one. You can close your eyes or lower your gaze. And what I want you to do is just visualize a problem in your life right now. Just a mild to moderate problem, nothing too huge. Maybe it's a mistake you made, or a relationship concern you're having, or a problem at work. And just visualize it just to the point where you start to feel some discomfort in your body. Kind of keep one eye inward. When you notice that discomfort come up, I want you to attend to it. Explore it, breathe with it nice and slow, and just notice the discomfort in your body. We're being mindful of the sensations of suffering in our body that we're feeling, and just attending to it, exploring it, and just allowing it to do its thing without us resisting it. Kind of just breathe with it nice and slow. And as you do this, it's reminding yourself that this is part of being a human being, that you're not alone in this. I don't know what problem you've thought of, but it doesn't matter. There's so many people in the world. Someone has experienced something very similar to you, and they felt the same way. They experienced it the same way in their body. And this is this common humanity, that we're not in isolation with our problems, that other people have felt just like this. So just giving this message to your brain that it makes sense, that you feel this way, and it's okay. And other people have felt this way too. What I want you to start doing is just breathe into it, nice and slow. Almost allow the warm air to kind of caress it, just as a way to soothe yourself. And as you do this, as I've talked about before, use some soothing touch, whether you put your hand on your chest or you wrap your arms around yourself. And I just want you to breathe nice and slow with this discomfort that you feel, and feel the warmth of your hand as you do this. Just doing this, just for a few more deep breaths. And then you can start to give yourself some self-kindness phrases, almost saying them each time you exhale. Like, may I be kind to myself right now? Or may I care for myself during this moment of suffering? Or may I accept myself just as I am? And just saying these phrases to yourself as you breathe with the sensations in your body, and almost saying them to yourself like you would a dear friend, with the same tone of voice, with the same warmth, almost holding the same posture, using the same body language. And just take a few more deep breaths in and out. And when you're ready, you can come back to the room. And so that meditation is actually called a self-compassion break. It comes from a psychologist named Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer. And it's a really basic self-compassion meditation that we can use. And you don't have to do it exactly like that. The wonderful part about a self-compassion practice is you can kind of explore using it all sorts of different ways. So I hope this video was helpful. Please put your questions or comments down below, hit the like button, and subscribe to my channel, as I'm going to release videos every week talking about neuroplastic pain and mind-body concerns. Take care.